Thom Hartmann here with an excerpt from my book, Rebooting the American Dream, 11 Ways to Rebuild Our Country. My radio show has a mission statement. We don't say it on the air as it sounds a bit pompous, but it's the metric against which we measure our work, saving the world by awakening one person at a time. During the 1980s, when I was CEO of an advertising agency in Atlanta, our mission statement was to help people communicate, to make better and more open companies. Before that, in 1983, Louise and I started a travel company that hit the front page of the Wall Street Journal the next year and has conducted around $250 million in business since then. Its mission statement was to help people better understand the world by traveling through it. And in 1978, my wife and I started a community for abused children in New Hampshire with a very clear mission statement, saving the world one child at a time. For most of American history, businesses, for-profit and nonprofit, have had mission statements that were broader than simply serving the interests of shareholders and CEOs, and referred instead to the long-term interests of the company, its workers, and its customers. Economics author Barry C. Lynn noted that by the 1950s, managers were wont to present themselves as corporate stewards whose job was to serve stockholders, employees, customers, and the public at large. In other words, besides the stockholders, there were also the workers, the customers, and the general public who are crucial to the long-term well-being of the corporation itself. CEOs actually rose through the ranks of the businesses and felt loyal to the companies that they ran. They often started in the mailroom as a 20-year-old and fully expected to retire with a comfortable pension, the company in the good hands of one of their younger protege vice presidents who was working his or her way to that CEO status. That corporate mentality and mission was generally true all the way until the 1980s. But in the early Reagan years, something changed dramatically, and it's devastated the American corporate landscape. First, President Reagan effectively stopped enforcing the Sherman Antitrust Act of 1890, a law that effectively prevented cartels and monopolies and large corporations from dominating markets. The Reagan administration's backing off from enforcement of the act led to an explosion of mergers and acquisitions, buyouts, green mail, forced mergers, and other aggressive and aggregations of previously competitive or totally unrelated companies. The big got bigger, the mid-size got acquired or crushed, and the space in which small entrepreneurs could start and flourish nearly vanished. But what followed this was even worse. Starting back in the 1930s, a particularly toxic form of economic thinking, some would argue sociopathic economic thinking, began to take hold, some of it propelled by theories developed by the Chicago School of Economics by Milton Friedman, who would later serve as an economic advisor to Reagan. By the 1980s, that economic thinking had undergone several mutations, and the one that has hit America the hardest is the notion that every business in the country has a single mission statement to maximize shareholder value and dividends. The theory behind this was that in a modern corporation, the role of the CEO and the executive level workers is to do whatever's best for the shareholders. To provide the incentive for CEOs and senior executives to think like a shareholder, tax and accounting rules were both changed and used in the 1980s to actually turn CEOs into more shareholder than employee. This was done by moving huge chunks of their compensation from payroll, cash, into stocks and stock options, the right to buy stock in the future at a current price and then quickly sell it for a profit. Although a CEO like Stephen J. Hemsley of United Health Group made an annual salary of $13.2 million in 2007 and only $3.2 million in 2009, a year when CEO pay in the healthcare industry was under a lot of scrutiny, he was awarded more than $744 million worth of stock options during the few years he was CEO. His predecessor, William Dollar Bill McGuire, was paid more than $1.7 billion in stock options for his previous decade of work as CEO. Such compensation packages are now relatively common across corporate America, having created a new CEO aristocracy as well as a totally different business climate from the way America was before Reagan. Besides the fact that such stock option deals are extremely lucrative for these executives without making their salaries seem sky high, they have another somewhat insidious effect. Because CEOs are now first and foremost stockholders, every decision is grounded in and colored by the question, will this immediately increase the price of my stock and the amount of the dividend income it pays? Left in the dust are questions like, what's best for this company's long-term survival? And what's best for the communities in which we do business? Stock values are best increased by ruthlessly slashing costs, cutting employees, outsourcing to cheap labor countries, cutting corners in production, and increasing revenues, buying up competitors to create monopoly markets so price competition is minimized. What's more, the money these CEOs and executives make from the sale of the stocks they own or from the dividends these stocks pay is subject to an income tax of only 15 to 20%, as opposed to the 35 to 39% top marginal tax rate, the result of the Bush tax cuts. No wonder the rich are getting richer. The jobs are going abroad, and average workers are just plain old out of luck. I'm Thom Hartmann, and you just heard an excerpt from my book, Rebooting the American Dream. Find out what happens next at thomhartmann.com.